when we're looking in China at the assessments between the SOEs, is there a difference in the way we're looking at systemically the central SOEs and the other SOEs?
There is a difference. Obviously, the G is different for central SOEs and local SOEs. For the central ones, the G is primarily SOSAC. So, for each of the 4 factors, we look at, our assessment is from the perspective of SOSAC. But the central level SOSAC has about 98 SOEs under its control. Like I mentioned earlier, in terms of status, ownership, and control, there is one camp of very strategic central SOEs to the SOSAC, including the oil majors, the 2 power grids, the military, defense companies, where we score this factor as being very strong versus most of the other names under our coverage. For example, the power IPPs and the China State construction, railway construction, these type of names where we will have the status ownership control as strong. And then when we look at the other factors, especially the last 2, social political implication of default and financial implication of default, we would look at this on a national basis. So obviously, power grid, state grid of China. Because there are only 2 power grids in China. One is the State Grid Corporation of China, and the other is the China Southern Grid. So their business model is sort of different from the transmission companies in other markets because they buy power from the gencos and then they supply power to customers. So social political implication of default is strong if they run into financial trouble and do not have the money capacity to purchase power and supply power. Whereas we look on a national basis, right? Look at the construction companies. The construction industry is highly fragmented on a national basis. Although we have China State Construction, which is the largest constructor in China, and other high-profile buildings are built by state construction, but still, if China State Construction runs into trouble, the buildings are still there. And China still has, hundreds and, other constructors which can continue to build the apartments, the office buildings, in the country. On the local level, things might be a bit different. First of all, the G is the local SOSAC. And very similar to the way central SOEs are managed, each local SOSAC supervises and controls the local SOEs in a way where there is one camp which is considered very strategic to them at the local level. So the local party, the Central Committee of the local Communist Party, will appoint chairman and senior management of these local SOEs directly. So one example is Beijing Energy. So in Beijing, it is considered one of those very strategic local SOEs, whereas the other local SOEs, the chairman and management appointed by the local SOSAC. And for the social political implication factor, I think each region, the assessment will vary. So for example, coal mining, if we think about it conceptually, coal mining probably isn't that strategically important, but there are certain provinces in China where the local economy is pretty much dependent on the coal mining industry. And the state-owned coal mining companies are not just producing coal. They also bear a lot of social functions. They maintain, actually, some of them actually have utility functions too. And they own the schools, they own the hospitals, and the whole, you can have actually a whole town, a population living upon this one particular state-owned coal mining company. So for examples like that, you would score social political implication as strong rather than moderate versus where another province where the industries are, the local economies are much more diverse.